Hi, I'm Major Aryan, and today, for my Trinity Grade 8 speech and drama, I'd like to give you all a glimpse into my life. My life as a soldier in the war. How many roads must a man walk down before you can call him a man? Before you can call him a man. Before you can call him a man. Hello? Is it working? Okay, good. Gentlemen, cadets on parade. I feel happy to have taken the salute on this parade today. Your drill and your steadiness were of a very high standard, and I congratulate you all on this. Remember, good drill always means good discipline, and steadiness on parade indicates steadiness of the mind. This latter quality is most essential in every officer because a steady mind helps face any problem with calm and courage, whether it be in peace or in war. You may have worked hard for the last 2 years to get your commissions, which I'm happy to see you have now got. Do not now start off in your officer lives with the feeling that as an officer, you get to work half as hard as you have done here. Remember, your real work starts from the moment you put on your first pip on your shoulder. Modern ways of warfare calls for continuous hard work. Very hard work. From every officer, no matter his rank, if that officer wants to be successful. Further, in free India, where we are the People's Army, our civic duties to our people as citizens of the land, besides being the soldiers, also call for hard work. The harder you train in peace to perfect your knowledge in every way as a soldier, the greater your success will be in war. Unless you are yourself an efficient soldier, you cannot possibly, by any stretch of imagination, expect the men you train, the men you lead, to have confidence in you. And unless you have that confidence, you cannot succeed in war. You must be able to do everything you may expect your men to do, twice as better as they can do it. Soldiers will follow officers anywhere, even to hell if necessary. For they will feel, we know this is just a temporary shift to hell, but he is bound to bring us back to heaven again. So, make the fullest use of every second of the day to perfect yourself as officers and gentlemen, to gain the respect of the men you command, which acquisition is a matchless gift for any officer. perfect gentlemen. We trained ourselves to be. That's what it took to be a man. How many years can some people exist before they're allowed to be free? And some, how many times can a man turn his head and pretend he just doesn't see? And pretend he just doesn't see. Bullets and stuff be flying all over. It is something I simply cannot understand. Why in hell is we doing all this anyway? Playing football is one thing, but this, I do not know why. God damn! I brought that boy back and run out again. And damn if I don't come across somebody else. So I reach down and pick him up and bring him back too. But when I do, his brains fall out on the paddy ground. Because the back of his head blowed off. Shit. So I drop his ass and keep on going. And sure enough, there is Baba, who's been hit twice in the chest. And I say, Baba, it's gonna be okay. You hear? Because we're gonna get that shrimp boat and all. And I carry him back to where we had laid camp and laid him on the ground. When I catch my breath, and look down on my shirt, all covered with blood and bluish yellow goo where Baba got hurt. And Baba's looking up at me and he say, "Fuck it, Forrest. Why this happened?" Well, what in hell am I gonna say? Then Baba asks me, "Forrest, can you play me a song on the harmonica?" So I get it out. And start playing something. I don't even know what. And then Baba say, "Forrest, would you please play Way Down in the Swanee River?" And I say, "Sure, Baba." And I have to wipe off the mouthpiece and then I start to play. And there's still a terrible lot of shooting going on. And I know I ought to be with my machine gun, but what the hell? I played that song. I hadn't noticed it. But it had quit raining. And the sky done turned an awful pinkish color. It made everybody's face look like death itself. And for some reason, the gooks done shooting, and so had we for a while.
I played way down upon the Swanee River over and over again, kneeling next to Baba while the medic gave him a shot and tended to him the best he could. Baba then grabbed a hold of my leg and his eyes got all cloudy and that terrible pink sky seemed to drain all the color from his face. He was trying to see something. And so I bent over real close to hear what it was. But I never could make out what he said. So I asked the medic, "You hear what he say?" And the medic say, "Home." He said, "Home." Baba died. And that's all I got to say about that.
That's how long it took for him to be free. Freedom.
And how many deaths will it take till he knows that too many people have died? That too many people have died. It seemed that out of battle I escaped, down some profound dull tunnel long since scooped, through granites which titanic wars had grown, yet also their encumbered sleepers grown, too fast in thought or death to be stirred. Then, as I probed them, one sprang up and said, stared, with piteous recognition in fixed eyes, lifting distressful hands as if to bless. And by his smile, I knew that sullen hall. And by that dead smile, I knew we stood in hell. With 1,000 fears that vision's face had grained, yet no blood reached here from upper ground, and no guns thumped or down the flues made mourn. Strange friend, I said, here is no cause to mourn. None, said the other, save the undone years. The hopelessness, whatever hope is yours, was mine. Life also, I went hunting wild, after the wildest beauty of the world, which lies not calm in the eyes, nor braided head, but mocks the steady running of the hour. And if it grieves richlier than yours, for by my glee might many men have laughed, and of my weeping something had been left, which must die now. I mean the truth untold, the pity of war, the pity word is still. Now men will go content with what we spoiled, or discontent boil bloody and be spilled. There will be swift with swiftness of the tigress. None will break ranks through nation trek from progress. Courage was mine and I had mystery. Wisdom was mine and I had mastery. To miss the march of the retreating world into waiting citadels that had not quarreled. Then, when much blood had clogged their chariot wheels, I would go up and wash them from sweet wells. Even with truths that had been too deep for taint, I would have poured my spirit without tint, without stint, but not enough. But not through wounds, not on the cess of war. Foreheads of men have bled where no wounds were. I am the enemy you killed, my friend. I know you in this dark, for so you frown. Yesterday, through me, as you jabbed and killed, I parried, but my hands were loath and cold. Let us sleep now. The end. The conclusion. The answer? If you must. The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. Thank you. Moving on to key skill 4. I've chosen the passage London Assurance by Dion. I shall not pronounce that last name at the risk of messing it up. Right. So upon first glance of the passage, I felt the main message of the text was criticizing the premise of modern marriage. And it basically talks about how marriage has now become a contract. It's not about love. People are willing to sacrifice love for their self-interest. Marriage is becoming a commercialized institution. I think that's what the text was trying to convey. About the language, I noticed that it was very formal. There was an air of superiority, perhaps richness, and it felt very royal. It was very polished language, as evidenced by prognosticate the sign season, or towards the end, a mania indigenous to humanity. I felt all of these were very polished ways. So probably also targeting the rather high-class urban audience as well. If we talk about what we know about the character through these dialogues, we can see that the character is disillusioned and doesn't believe in the institution of marriage. We can also see that they believe that love has become commercialized and people living happily ever after doesn't really exist. It's gone. And this is perhaps a common occurrence, or they believe this is a common occurrence in urban areas or in the metropolis, because they've specifically mentioned, you seem surprised, isn't this common in the metropolis? And further, if I have to add on to this, we also see that she talks about how falling in love makes people dumb, not have like basic common sense, and they keep making the same mistakes again and again. And I feel like those were a couple of things you could pick up from about the character. If you look at the specific piece that reveals a lot about this is yours specifically. When I am in love, I write an almanac. The very lack of wit prognosticate the sighing season, when to beware of tears. About this time, expect matrimony to be prevalent. Why should I lay my life out in love's bond upon the bare security of a man's word? So I felt like this gave an insight into the character as well. If we talk about who the intended audience was, definitely the rich, urban, high-class people who have the opportunity of going to these like London balls per se. This might be a medieval text, perhaps slightly like maybe written in the 19th century London, because that's the setting I could interpret. Aside from that, we can see that a couple of tools that the author made use of to engage the audience. A couple were conversation and questioning, directly asking the audience, "You seem surprised," directly questioning them as well. "Is this not common in the metropolis? Like, you must know." And the last note, the last line, "Why should I lay my life out in lost bonds upon the bare security of a man's word?" This is the last thing a listener listens to. And this is the question that stays with them. So it's perhaps very helpful for the listener to reflect back upon these questions and criticize the institution of marriage and what it has become right now. So I feel like those were a couple of tools that the that the author made use of. On top of that, the author made use of dramatic irony in the first, in the starting bit itself. "I have many employments. This week, I devote to study and various amusements. Next week to being married, the following week to perhaps repent." So this like intrigues the reader also. Like, she just got married, why is she repenting? And this leads into the passage as well. So dramatic irony was used very well. Already talked about how the language hints toward is very deep, very heavy, and it indicates to the reader that the character knows what she's talking about. So those were a couple of tools that I thought were used very well. Similarly, if I talk about a couple of significant portions that were in this text, aside from the piece I performed, the extract I performed previously, I believe that the starting is also very significant because it sets the tone. It goes, "Men talk of killing time, while time quietly kills them. I have many employments. This week, I devote to study and various amusements. Next week to being married. The following week to repent, perhaps. You seem surprised. I believe it is a frequent occurrence in the metropolis, is it not? The gentleman swears to eternal devotion to the lady's fortune, and the lady swears she will outbuy him. My lord's horses and my lady's diamonds shine through a few seasons until a seat in the parliament or continent stares them in the face." So I feel like this was a significant portion as well, because it definitely sets the tone and it sets like the starting part of what the main message of the dialogue was. I mentioned dramatic irony has been used very well to hook in the reader, so the reader is also intrigued into what the character is talking about. And if it were up to me, I think I would have started this off in a very deep voice, and probably in a dark setting with just a spotlight, because it starts off with a very profound line, "Men talk of killing time and time quietly kills them." And then perhaps going to a rather faster way of speaking, "This week I devote to study and various amusements. Next week to being married. The following week to repent," perhaps. Very matter-of-factly saying this would be helpful. Or at least it would like create a nice impact, I feel. And towards the end where we talk about ladies, well, she will outbuy him, still be very animated, very dramatic, make make very exaggerated notes. And until a seat in the parliament or continent stares them in the face, stare directly at the audience. I feel like those would be a couple of very interesting things to bring out the emotion of the performance. If we move on to key skill 5, so my theme was of war, and when war comes to mind, people just think of bloodshed, but I also wanted to talk about the motivation, the pride one feels of serving the country, and the bonds one can form between like their comrades during war, the kind of fraternity there is. So that was like my main motivation, like to show these emotions. So for my first piece, I wanted to showcase the motivation and pride one feels for serving the country. I really wanted it to be related to an Indian context, so I could relate to the content more and I could be more authentic. Second, for my second piece, I wanted to showcase the loss one feels because of bloodshed, losing someone they are really close to and they'd served together with. And it's basically just the kind of gloominess, the sadness you feel when you lose someone to this kind of violence. And and the closeness you had with one, and that's obviously what the sadness relates to. And my final piece was relevant to rejecting the premise of war and highlighting how everybody has the same aspirations. We're all human at the end, and war is just a loss for both people because there are humans fighting on both ends. Both have the same hopes, aspirations. They're just on two different sides of the border. So what really made me choose the poem was the fact that it ends off with this very nice plot twist where I'm talking to the enemy I killed yesterday, and now I'm also dead, and we're basically bonding over the same stuff. I feel that was very important. For my first piece, my father is in the army and he is very into these kind of speeches, and he's very motivated me to read these as well. So that was another motivation. And my second piece was right from Forrest Gump, and Forrest Gump is a classic. So I mean, if you talk about how the extracts are performed fit into the overall plot of the arc, as I mentioned why I performed the poem, I'll be talking about the poem. The whole point of the poem was to reject the premise of the war. Something that the poem really incorporated was the theme of white. The white kind of dupatta I was wearing signifies both peace and death, very funeral-like. And at the end I covered my face, so I felt like that was a nice touch. There was a lot of dramatic build-up. It started from motivation, went on to like adrenaline, oh my god, we're in war, there are bullets flying all over, I need to get my soldiers back. There's sadness, like Holmes, the last thing he said, and then is me actually in war. The incorporation of the music I felt was really nice. The poem itself highlights how enemies or soldiers on the other sides are also human and just like us have the same aspirations. And after that, we'll all end up in the same place. So regardless of our nationality, and I think it nicely ties in with showcasing how futile the death of my best friend was, and just showcasing how futile war itself is in rejecting this premise. And since it is the last performance, this is the message that remains with the viewer as well, that war is a loss for everyone and there is no winner in war. If I talk about how I developed my physical and vocal skills, obviously singing was one of my major vocal skills because I'm horrible at singing, and I think that might have shown, but it's much more horrible when I don't practice. Definitely working on tone for the different speeches. The first speech was very motivational. It was like, I congratulate you all, your drill and your steadiness on parade. So it was motivational. The second piece was slightly more rustic, not perfect English. And aside from that, it's more, it's a lot about, there's a lot of action going on because it's in the middle of a whole shooting, and it gradually fades into a more morose setting. So I guess working on that intonation and the kind of tone I was using was also important. And finally, having that whole dramatic sequence for the poem with the song was very important. The whole dramatization, change in pace, those were a couple of things that I worked on from a vocal standpoint. As far as the physical standpoint goes, working on the guitar was a very important bit. My fingers are dead. Shifting personas as I shifted headgear, working alongside the props, all of these were physical skills that I tried to work with. The limp was also one part. Whenever I was not in headgear, I was limping. Setting the stage, empty space, had a mirror, had a gun. Mirror was there for reflection, gun was there for war. So those were a couple more like spatial awareness that I had to be aware of. And talking about how I prepared myself emotionally and mentally, emotionally and physically for my performances today. Physically, costume was a major part. This was a very important addition. I didn't want to showcase any cloth here. I wanted this to be very raw because this was the leg I was limping on, showcasing that this is where I got hurt. I was messing around with my white thing being a bandage. It became slightly complicated, so I ditched that idea finally. Aside from that, in physical preparations, I also made sure to include where my stage was marked, and that was a majority of my physical preparation. As far as emotional preparation goes, connecting with the material was the most important thing that I had to do. So relating my pieces back to my own background, my personal background. I'm the head boy of my school and the captain of the cricket team as well. So motivating the men around me is definitely something I took inspiration from, and that's something what I tried to imbibe into my first piece. My second piece, where my best friend dies, I tried to get, well, I cried real fake tears. So really like putting myself in the role that I'm actually losing someone who's very close to me, and then seeing how I would feel, and then continuing that sort of emotion into my last piece as well. So that was also an important part, and definitely I could relate a little more to the war theme as well, specifically because of the stories my dad keeps telling me, and just the kind of upbringing I've had, the exposure I've had, moving from place to place, shifting around, and just a very tumultuous environment I was in before this. Thank you.